Welcome to the Be Smart About Art show. My name is Susan J. Mumford. It's fabulous to have you here online as ever. We're here today talking about getting a gallery to love you. Well, this could be interesting for artists, for galleries, actually, who might be interested in loving some artists. And the way that I'm seeing today's session is that it's kind of a mini workshop. This is like the workshop that I've led many, many times in the past that was originally called the do's and don'ts of what did I call it? Artist representation, or gallery representation. The do's and don'ts of getting representation. What did I call it? It was something like that. And then eventually getting a gallery to love you. And today, what I'm doing is I am taking some core facets of that program that I have run over the years is 1 hour talks, 2 hour workshops, half day intensives. I remember one time a few years ago being at Cockpit Arts, who a few of you, particularly based in the UK, might know of Cockpit Arts being this fabulous program with several locations for designer makers. And hello to those of you who are waving as well. And thank you for sharing. Thank you, as ever. So Cockpit Arts, I did this half day intensive on the artist gallery relationship. I mean, it really was a half day intensive, quite interesting. So what I want to do now is essentially address one thing, which is about the art world being in flux at this point in time. I really am keen to address this because I've had a number of artists still say, hey, Susan, I'm interested in working at the gallery. I'm interested in going ahead and starting to approach galleries. Surely this downtime is really great opportunity for doing those kinds of things. And my immediate take is the gallery's number one priority right now is survival, and their second priority is supporting the artists who they're already working with. So how on earth can you go about starting relationships, either new conversations or continuing conversations when we're in this different environment, and as we come out of that situation as well, probably into the biggest recession that we have ever known in our lives by the looks of thing. So when we have addressed that and how to be sensitive to that and to understand what exactly is changing with the art world, then looking secondly at what you can do to develop, to get ready for new partnerships, what work needs to be done behind the scenes so that you actually are in a position to even have those conversations. Years ago, what that brings to mind is there was an artist I was in a mentoring session with. I was working with the New Creative Markets program called NCM. It was brilliant. It brought together 4 different organizations in London and Be Smart About Art. We were one of the kind of supporting partner organizations. So I was an advisor, and an artist came along and she said, right, I am ready to get represented. And it turned out that she didn't actually have any work in the studio because it had all sold out. And I said, well, you've got to have a new body of work before you can possibly start to approach gallery. So there can be things that you need to be doing, that you need to have actually completed, that might seem obvious to somebody like myself, but to you, you're in the middle of everything that you do, so it may not be as obvious to you. So I'll walk you through some of that about the work to be done behind the scenes to be ready. We are going to be looking then at how it's done, how that approach to galleries is made. It's useful insight for gallerists, art dealers, and curators as well, because it actually helps to direct you. When you find out how the majority of artists do end up working with galleries, it helps you to think about what you can do in your approach as well, because galleries are always looking for new talent. Even if a gallery says, I say this as an ex-dealer, an ex-gallerist, and an advisor myself, even if they say they're not seeking new artists to represent, to work with at that point in time, their eyes are typically speaking open. And I would say right now is a great example, because galleries who have textile artists in their networks might suddenly be working with some artists that they've never worked with previously, getting, say, some awesome face masks and the like from those artists. So suddenly what you're doing might be able to provide a solution to galleries. So their eyes are open, is what I would say. And then I'll give a recap for what we've gone through. There we are. Sounds good. Ask any questions you have. Make any comments if you want to add anything, provide any links, please feel free to, whether you are watching live or if you are watching the replay. Right, so the first really point to go through is how the art world is indeed in flux right now. Now, what we're seeing is a shift to online. When we were at the very beginning of the pandemic, a lot of people went, right, let's put that event on hold. Let's rearrange that event. Let's just go ahead and delay things for a few months. Now, what we're seeing at this point, at the live time of this recording, is that this is going to be the reality for some time. This is the very reason why when I talk with people about what they're doing, I am suggesting don't think about something that you can do ambitiously for a few weeks. Think about new programming, think about new engagement, let's say on social media, on your website, on third-party platforms, on YouTube, whatever it is. Think about things, new offerings, maybe an art club, maybe classes, it could be special commissions, could be so many things. A new little face masks, I was saying before, various things that you can think of. What are things that you could actually offer for the next year? What about the next 18 months? What are things that you can do to be in this different world that means that you're good? You can keep going, you can maintain your creativity, you can maintain your business, and that's fine even if you're doing other things on the side as well. And if the situation changes earlier than we expect, then you can adjust what your plans are. But bearing in mind what I was saying, that it's not only a pandemic we're talking about, that is going to most likely coincide with a recession. So it's not to put you off, it's not to scare you, it's to say, what can you do for your own website? Do you need to add e-commerce? Is it the case that you want to be adding prices with an inquiry button? Is it easy enough to get in touch with you online? Do you have multiple ways for people to get in touch? Have you set up a telephone number for people to call you? It doesn't have to be your direct mobile number. It could be a VoIP, voice over the internet phone. It could also be a Skype number. It could be so many different solutions, having ways of people contacting you as well. Do you want to set up some new third-party platform subscriptions so that you've got mini sites where you're not doing the marketing all your own on your own? Those platforms are helping you, but do bear in mind as well when we talk about third-party platforms that you need to help. It's important that you help to promote those platforms. So when you send out social media posts, you're tagging that platform, you're using their hashtag, that kind of thing. So don't completely let them do everything. You want to enable that to be collaborative, exactly in the same way that when an artist is working with a gallery, that's a team effort. And we're even seeing that relationship, talking about the art world being in flux. We're seeing that change right now. When a gallery presents an online exhibition of your work, you probably need to do the fulfillment right now, unless you get the pieces to the gallery for them to physically display to create a 360-degree exhibition. If they're doing that, cool. If they're not, and you're doing the fulfillment, well, the responsibilities of the two different parties are actually shifting. And galleries are talking about how interesting that is, how fascinating it is for who's doing what to kind of be changing. And it's, I think, from my observations and the conversations I'm having, it's really increasing trust in many of those relationships as well, which is fabulous. You might need to put in new contractual terms as well. Now suddenly that artists are getting more online, more than ever before, and galleries might be going, we're still doing promotions, and the gallery doesn't want collectors going directly to the artist when the gallery's been promoting them, to ensure that that relationship works according to who is doing what and who is making how much effort, that you might want to put in place something new, some kind of new agreement as well, enabling artists to do a certain element of self-representation on top of that. In terms of how else the art world is in flux, and thinking about the things that you're doing, and this starts to lead to one of the points I'll be making shortly, is, are you offering virtual studio visits? Are you getting in touch with peers and maybe arranging conversations on Instagram TV, i.e. IG TV? Now the way that Instagram is working, whenever you do an IG live, it prompts you to save it to your IGTV channel, and then you have all of these recordings. You can save the recording, and then you can give it a title, you add it to your channel, and when you look at somebody's Instagram account, you now see a little middle icon, and that's for IGTV. So the pandemic has really seen a taking off of IGTV. It really had only worked for people with mega followings, kind of celebrities or kind of online stars previously, but now it really is working for artists. We're seeing artists directly selling as a result of Instagram Live. We are seeing galleries and artists succeeding with exhibitions by doing virtual tours, having a curator's tour of exhibitions. We are seeing an explosion of online art fairs, and we are going to be seeing an explosion of online auctions, having that pressure, having that time sense of, oh, I need to buy it by X date or I might lose my chance. That is really significant. So things are very, very quickly shifting right now, and we'll be coming out of this period with a much bigger connection to online and much more accessibility to online. So you've got your immediate local, that is your immediately local vicinity wherever you live, and then you've got the world. That's the future of this art world. And I want you to understand kind of where that's going, because we're not going back to exactly where we were. And this means that actually people who might be really they just have a real sense of familiarity, or that a real sense of connection with what you do, it's not going to matter as much where in the world they are, because we're going to be more comfortable with having conversations online, on participating online. And it's important that you understand that for when it comes to then developing new relationships. To a certain extent, you want to be talking with people as well who are up for doing the kind of things that you're doing. Now, if you're somebody who's going, listen, I'm just going to wait until things go back to normal, you probably want to be talking with potential partners who have a similar mindset, who they're going, listen, we're just going to wait until things go back to normal, and then we can do things in person. And that's a point of view. If you, on the other hand, are going, listen, I think that this is amazing, and I want to give access online, find partners who share that mindset, share partners or have partnerships with people who have similar complementary ambitions to yourself. Why are you doing this? Are you doing this to make a living? Are you doing this to get into the media? Are you doing this to change the world? You might be wanting to do several of those things. On the online auctions, think about the importance of value and the social upheaval that we have been seeing taking place in the world. Supporting causes that are important to you shows who you are as a person, who you are as a brand, and actively supporting through your work will be increasingly important as well. I've already been talking about that for years. That we are going to see increasingly as we move in to the coming decades, I would say. It's really interesting in terms of where we are and where we're going. And we're seeing it, we are living through history right now. This is happening right now. So then the question is for you, how are you getting ready for those new partnerships? What have you not yet put in place that you actually need to have in place in order to get new partnerships? Well, let's think about 3 different things for today's little session. The first one is, what do you need in a partnership? What do you need in that other person, that other business? So what is the identity? It's kind of like when I've done workshops in the past where we've looked at the avatar of your ideal client. So what's the avatar of your ideal professional partner? So really think about who that person is, what the brand is, what their activities are, what they're moving into doing, how are they reacting to this time, and how does that reflect upon what your own interests are as well. Have the ability to, this is the second point, have the ability to talk about yourself, your practice, think about the why you do what you do. The why is really the important thing. We're going to see a lot of creative practices change during this period as well. And that's great. Experiment. What is it? What is that overall umbrella that really brings everything together. What is that? Because what that means is that, I mean, I'm thinking about one artist who I've been working with for years who's based out of New York, who does all kinds of different activities outside of fine art. And that person is now building a website that brings it all together to say, listen, I'm a true creative. I need to do way more than one thing. And I get it because I'm exactly the same. And so what is it that brings you together? What is that bigger picture? To think about that, to define that, to be able to talk about what it is, what you do. And that applies, by the way, if you're a gallerist, if you're an art dealer, we all need different strings to our bow. We might call them income streams, we might call them activities, you might call them projects, different ways of describing these things. Whatever they are, to have an understanding of what umbrella that all sits under is key. It's vital to then not only other people understanding you, but you understanding you as well, which people have heard me talk about when I've done art world pitches with art world professionals in the past, because that actually is not just marketing. It's actually about your own self-understanding. It's your own clarity as well. And then the third point, for getting ready for those new professional partnerships and the work that you need to have done behind the scenes, is to have a pack ready to send. Okay, that is key. When you have a conversation, you need to be ready to get off the Instagram direct messaging platform or off the FaceTime call, whatever it is you're doing, and to say, yep, I'll follow you up by the end of the week, and to just immediately get that over. Just really deliver above and beyond. Exceed expectations when you do that. And I want you to bear in mind too, when we're talking about professional partnerships, that it is a two-way decision. If you're in that conversation and you're thinking, I'm just not quite sure about this person, get references. Go and approach people who've worked with that partner previously that you can find online and say, hey, what was it like? Bearing in mind that different people will have different aspects to the story. And just do talk about what your aims are as well when you end up in those conversations. Pay attention to early warning signs of things that might be a challenge, or the early signs of this person is amazing. Really do think about that. And then remember that with these professional partnerships, that it is a collaboration. We've been talking about this for years. That is where we are now, more than ever. And the pandemic, maybe a silver lining, as much as we can find one for such a challenging time that none of us would have wanted, is a bit of a leveling out that is taking place with these relationships. Now, in terms of how it's done and applying this thinking to this big period of change, a multi-year period, I'm going to tell you the top 3 ways that Be Smart About Art has found that artists get representation by galleries and dealers. This is based on research that we have done, and I'm going to translate that then to this era. So the first way is artists introducing other artists to galleries. I personally experienced that tons in my own gallery. And artists would only recommend other artists if they really believed in them. The second way is by getting discovered. So that's the artist. Typically, it might have been something such as in London, which is where my own gallery was based, where I would go to the Royal Society of Portrait Painters annual exhibition. And I one time found an artist there. So the artist was participating and getting discovered. So I was doing the very thing that years down the road I found was one of the main ways that artists get representation. And the third way is by being introduced by other galleries. So maybe a gallery who isn't right for you, but is a long-standing contact or colleague. It could have been somebody who you worked with previously when you were doing a different style of work. They will have their own network of peers. Chat with them, and then you can see who they can introduce you to. So thinking about this period of time, what that comes down to is 2 things. One is, how are you maintaining your relationships? One of the big points that I've been hearing about succeeding with sales, succeeding with new partnerships, is having one-to-one conversations. So that could be a prompt to think each week, who are 3 people that you could get in touch with? 3 people by email, by social media message, by calling them, FaceTiming them. How do they like to communicate? And it could be 5 people, it could be once a day. It's whatever suits you. It could be 1 a week. that's one thing to think about because that hits to points number 1 and 3. That is the introductions that you're going to be receiving potentially, deepening those relationships, updating people as to how you are, finding out how your own contacts are doing as well. It really means a lot to people to be hearing from you. There was one conversation that I was having with a key partner for another enterprise that I founded that I have to say, I think that we actually made an absolute breakthrough on the partnership because I was genuinely concerned about her well being. And I was practically crying on the telephone when she called me. And I said, "Oh my gosh, you're okay." I mean, I was just unbelievably relieved. We had that connection. Then we were able to talk about the business relationship. And what came through was just phenomenal. And it was genuine human to human connecting. And it meant that we had a result in a business way as well. And we've got a stronger connection now than we ever did. So reaching out to people, deepening those relationships. There might be people you've been connected with online that you could have an exploratory conversation with. That's what I call them, exploratory conversations. And then in terms of being discovered, that goes back to what I was talking about with what are you doing on your own site, your own social media channels, the third party platforms? How are you getting yourself discovered? And one thing I've been very excited to be seeing is that a number of artists who I know are joining artist associations. There are even some great new ones that are being spawned out of this period. I know a lot of galleries that are joining up to professional networks. It is phenomenal. And these are really great ways to help yourself be seen. So you can still get yourself discovered. You need to think about how to do it today. And something that I always talk about when it comes to approaching professional partnerships is that you can get in touch with people cold as well. It's best if you have an introduction, but if you don't have that, you can always start an online dialogue and then maybe take it onto a one-to-one platform for there. Do at the moment be aware as to the priorities of your prospective partners and think about how you can add value. So when I talk about selling, when I talk about creating new partnerships, the things that I talk about most often probably are solving problems and adding value. So how are you solving a problem? That might be the face mask example. And how are you adding value? And that could actually be adding value as well. There are different ways that you can add value. And that could include people that you don't have introductions to that are not discovering you. So do bear that in mind. And now when I think then about what else you want to be considering when it comes to prospective partnerships is to think about this still relates to value, but it's different. It's added value in the sense of you might have contacts with journalists. You might be a regular contributor to some platform. You might have other types of contacts. There might be a certain skill set that you do. Maybe you're really great at design. Maybe you're really excellent at copywriting. These are skill sets that you can bring into a professional partnership. And because we're doing a lot of skill sharing right now, I'm actually collaborating with a group of people who I'm kind of facilitating the calls, a group of people who will be participating in an online auction. They're all looking at how they can not only share their own skill sets, but about how the people who they're supporting who work with them can also be sharing their skills to help support them in their businesses when maybe they've lost some work. Think about what it is that you can bring to the table is a nice way of putting that, so that that's more that you can offer, that's more that you can bring when it comes to working with new partners. And I want to help empower you as well. A few years ago, we started being approached at Be Smart About Art by artists saying that they really wanted to introduce contracts to their artist gallery relationships because the galleries weren't introducing them. And we actually commissioned a contract that we made available for the Art Biz Bootcamp. And that was designed so that artists or galleries or people from either side of that equation, when it comes to consignment-based contracts, could put in place a nice agreement. And I really want to encourage you, whether it's a formal agreement like that, or even if it's a recap of a conversation to say, hey, here's what we've agreed. Let me know if you think anything's incorrect, and do say if you think it all looks good. You're basically providing they agree, providing both sides say, yep, great, and you've got that in writing. You've established a contract. And a contract is fantastic because it enables that everyone's on the same page. Different people hear different things, you remember different things. It serves as a point of reference so that if you forget what percentage you're getting for that kind of work of art, you can refer back to what you've put in writing helpfully yourself or the other person has summarized for you. And thirdly, it is something to refer to. If things go wrong, if you decide to no longer proceed with that relationship, then it gives you a solution for then how to act and what to do. It takes the emotional out of that situation and makes it objective so that you've basically provided yourself a guide. And notice that I didn't even talk about going to court. I didn't talk about going legal because you really want to avoid that. And agreements are a really, really great way of doing that. And hopefully, when you're setting up relationships in which you think the other person very much so has the same aims, you have shared values, you put in place a good agreement in whatever way, however informal or formal, that sets you up to having good long-term relationships and bearing in mind the importance of communication. If anything is going wrong, if you suspect anything is going wrong, have conversations. If you don't, things only get worse. So communicate, communicate, communicate. So taking us back to the beginning, we were talking about how the art world is in flux. What do you need to do to move forward? What do you need to understand about the businesses of your prospective partners? Secondly, we were thinking about what do you need to put in place in order to be ready? And thirdly, we were thinking about how you are going to end up having those conversations in order to realize those future prospective partners to be current prospective partners. So that's bringing us to a close of today's little mini session for the artist-gallerist relationship. That was good fun. I trust it was of value and of interest. If there was one thing that stood out to you, I would love for you to just pop into comments what it is that stood out for you. It's really interesting to know what people take away. And so often, years down the road, I'll do a workshop or a talk, or maybe I'll be mentoring somebody, and somebody will come back to me and they'll say, "Hey, Susan, there was that one thing you said." And it made a huge difference in their career. And that's really what gives me joy in this work. It's been an absolute pleasure. Do check out Be Smart About Art, both at besmartaboutart.com as well as patreon.com/Be Smart About Art. And I'll look forward to seeing you again online soon. I've been Susan J. Mumford, signing out from Lewis in East Sussex. Ciao for now.